Chapter 1. Arrival in the Forest. "Sir?" The voice came softly with a hint of mild urgency. He shifted lightly, his light sleep interrupted as someone spoke to him. His bleary eyes blinked open slowly. Blurry vision gradually became clear as the darkened interior of a large SUV was revealed, faint light shining through the windows. "Sir? Are you awake? We've come as far as I can take you. You'll have to walk the rest of the way." Jay looked toward the driver's seat, seeing the young man looking back at him with a trace of understanding. He glanced outside again and was greeted by darkness broken only by the occasional lamppost. Finally, he spoke. "Yeah, I'm up. I'm sorry." With a faint yawn, Jay unbuckled, popped open the door and stumbled out of the car. Some of his weariness was immediately quelled by the freezing breeze that brushed against his face, sapping his warmth. On the other side, the driver also stepped out and retrieved a red rolling suitcase. He passed it off to Jay, who nodded his thanks. "Will you be all right driving back in the dark?" "Of course, sir. I drive at night quite often." The driver reassured and quickly climbed back into his car, likely eager to return to the warmth it provided. Jay gave a wry smirk at that and slowly walked up to the boom gate blocking the road. Behind him, he heard the car slowly fade into the distance. Once the headlights were gone, Jay finally realized just how dark it was. Outside the reach of the lamps, the surrounding forest was pitch black with indistinct shades of darkness standing out. The only sounds were the continuous noise of crickets and a burbling stream off to his left, though he wasn't able to see the water. Jay reached out and grabbed the boom gate, attempting to lift it. It refused to budge, earning a frown from the young man. "The power must be out, or the gate's broken. That explains why he couldn't take me any further." When that failed, he ducked underneath the yellow and black striped pole and came up the other side. He glanced to his right and took note of the dark, abandoned security booth sitting even with the gate. It was hard to tell, but the little room looked completely trashed, and the door was dented. He'd be lying to himself if he said it wasn't a little unnerving. I guess Dr. Ina wasn't joking. This place hasn't been in use for a while. He let out another yawn before grabbing the handle of his suitcase with one hand, while the other pulled out his cell phone. He gave the device a quick shake to automatically turn the flashlight on, illuminating more of the gravel road stretching out before him. As the gravel crunched beneath his boots, he checked the time. It was minutes past midnight, and he had zero reception out here. It wasn't surprising. The flight and subsequent drive out to a remote location in the Alps undoubtedly took all day, and he would have been more than surprised to find a cell tower out here. As Jay walked down the gravel road, the shape of the largest satellite he had ever seen flickered in and out of view between the treetops. It was several stories tall, standing high above the surrounding trees and acting as a monolith to the stars. Though he couldn't make out any real details in the night, he could see the curve of the massive dish, the way the metallic beams joined together with a bright red light, and even the fact that there was a staircase going partly up the structure. He could even see a few more of those lights filtering through the trees. More importantly, more of the large lampposts lit up the path. While they were common enough to see by, it was still dark enough to require a flashlight. On his left, an illuminated wooden bridge crossed the small river that followed the road. Now that he could see the water, he was relieved to find that it wasn't particularly wide, deep, or fast-flowing. An old wooden post stood off to his right, his light revealing the sign that pointed to the checkpoint. Left without any other directions, he simply continued straight down the path he had already been on. The silence seemed oppressive, but Jay knew it was his mind playing tricks on him. He was walking through dark, isolated woods in the middle of the night and heading to an entirely unfamiliar location where he knew he would be completely alone. Of course he was unnerved. His pace quickened, a practiced stride that ate up the distance. Another signpost came up in his flashlight, this one thankfully having a sign that pointed toward base. Being his obvious goal, he hurried down the path that the sign indicated. Against the beautiful night sky and shadowed hills, another half-dozen eerie red lights trickled into view as he cleared the woods. Joining them was a pair of massive windmills that soon became four, once the first satellite labeled Juliet no longer blocked his view. Next came a large radio tower, four flashing red lights acting as the low-altitude warning. The sight of it was mildly confusing, but he quickly dismissed it. Whatever signals it sent out and received weren't phone signals. Jay was startled as he came across the base quite suddenly, a large grey shape suddenly looming out of the darkness. The shadowed backdrop of the nearby hills prevented him from seeing the outline until it appeared in his flashlight quite close. Judging by the 3 dumpsters, it was probably the back of the base, so he walked around the side until he came across a small parking lot. To his right, a small concrete structure rose out of the ground with a large metal post beside it, 4 old klaxons resting on the peak. He took note of the structure but ultimately dismissed it. Some kind of underground storage wasn't his target for the night. Instead, his sweeping light revealed a large amount of trash strewn throughout the lot. There was even a pile of paper and plastic 3 times his size in the center. An annoyed sound escaped him as he realized just how dirty the place was, only exacerbated by the large, grime-stained windows that his light couldn't pierce. It only took him a moment more to find the front door, heavy steel and fading paint providing a rather imposing picture. On the right, a keypad waited. The bright green light told him that it was unlocked, and a sheet of faded paper next to it told him the passcode after he pulled it off the wall. "Even in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't set that as my password," Jay grumbled, his voice barely penetrating the ever-present darkness. With the door already unlocked, he reached out and flipped a handle on the door itself. A pneumatic hiss carried through the night and revealed a dark, grimy interior. His annoyance grew steadily at the state of the place, but he pushed it aside. Dr. Bao had warned him just how trashed the place was and was even paying him extra to clean it up. He stepped inside and pressed the lock button on the keypad. The keypad beeped and the light turned red, but it took a few seconds before the door closed. Just to be sure, he inputted 4 ones and watched as the light turned green again. Then he locked it back and flicked the light switch. Nothing happened. The facility clearly had power, so he figured the switch was for an outdoor light and flipped it back off. He turned back around and walked deeper into the darkened halls. Crates bigger than he was lined the entrance. Everywhere he looked seemed to be covered in either dirt, grime, or trash. In the back right corner of the entryway, there was a security room with reinforced glass. While he couldn't access the room from here, he took note of the connected door and moved on. He took the only option, left, and found himself standing at the end of a long hallway with 1 door on the left and 4 on the right. The first door on the right was already unlocked, and a quick press revealed a spacious garage with a number of boxes, supplies, and more trash. An ATV sat in the center of the room, and he noticed that the security room likely led into the back corner of the garage. Then he noticed the rather substantial hole clearly cut out of the roof. Fuck no. Not tonight. Jay stepped back into the hallway and shut the door, quickly locking it with a single button. The next door on the right revealed a disgusting break room with a surprisingly stocked vending machine, a trash-covered sofa, and several small tables. When he turned left, he noticed the door was labeled with thick white paint on the wall next to it. Signal Processing and Research. A quick glance showed it would be his primary workstation, and it was also the room with the large windows. He put the details aside for now, checking the next room. Surprise! An incredibly messy storage closet. The next room was a staircase leading both up and down. Ignoring the basement for now, he went upstairs and carefully stepped around the trash. There were only 2 doors, one on the left and one straight ahead. The leftmost door had a keypad, and he tapped the green button. Jay gave a startled shout, stumbling back from the door as a wooden mannequin fell through the opening. His heart thundered in his chest as his breath came rapidly. After a moment of ineffective glaring, he forced out a groan. Whoever was here before me, fuck him. Jay dragged the wooden statue back inside the room. It was another, larger storage closet. He laid the figure down on the ground in the corner, then stepped out of the room and locked it. The final room was the one he was looking for, a mixture of kitchen and bedroom. A pressurized door led out to a balcony, and he wasted no time in locking that one too. A quick glance into the other door showed him a bathroom with another mannequin in the shower, which quickly joined his friend in the upstairs storage. Jay set his suitcase beside one of the bed frames without a mattress, then looked around the room. Like every other one in the building, it was a mess. It earned a soft sigh from the man. Bedroom first, and then the signal room. Though he had dozed on and off throughout the long car ride here, it didn't change the fact that it was now almost 2 a.m. Without even bothering to take off his jeans or jacket, Jay climbed into the rather uncomfortable bed and drifted off into a dreamless sleep. Jay quickly awoke to the sound of his phone blaring at him. He reached out and grabbed his phone from the bedside table, silencing the alarm. He climbed out of bed and quickly went about his morning business. His hot shower was ruined by the discovery that the hot water knob was missing, but he found a wrench in the storage room and made it functional. Then his hot breakfast was delayed because the microwave was not plugged in, and it took his sleepy mind way too long to realize that. However, he eventually found himself refreshed, fed, and ready to begin the day. His exploration led him out onto the balcony, where a collection of benches, chairs, and boxes was joined by a telescope not entirely unlike one he had owned as a kid. An old guardrail wrapped around the balcony, horribly rusted in some places. However, his attention was drawn further out. The full moon was slowly setting behind the trees, the red horizon steadily lighting up as dawn broke. 3 of the massive satellites stood like gargantuan sentinels, each one pointed to a different part of the sky. Power lines flowed across the small clearing around the facility, and he could faintly see the snaking gravel pathways in the growing light. "It really is beautiful out here," Jay murmured to himself softly. His long, dark hair swished softly in a ponytail as a cold mountain breeze passed through the little valley he found himself in. Fortunately, it wasn't winter yet. With it being toward the beginning of September, he knew it was only a matter of time before the cold began to set in. He wasn't really looking forward to it either. It was cold enough. He wasn't sure how long he stayed out on that balcony, watching the sky slowly lighten from black to red to blue. Eventually, he went back inside and locked the door behind him. A poster on the bedroom wall caught his attention. It was dirty like everything else in this place, frayed at the edges, and had been vandalized. Yet, it was the vandalism that drew him in. It was a generic, alien poster, the kind that said, "I want to believe," beneath a picture of a UFO. Yet, the disc had been scribbled over by a black marker. In its place was a triangular shape reminiscent of an arrowhead with 3 prongs on the back. Beneath it, the words "want to" had been scribbled out, leaving just "I believe." "Well, that's a fitting poster for a place like this," Jay quietly chuckled. He continued in his exploration of the trashed facility, with its stained floor, cracked walls, and faded murals. It wasn't creepy upstairs either, with the growing natural light streaming in from the large windows, but the downstairs hall and entranceway lacked any illumination from the sun. Instead, the shadows here seemed more pronounced, and it didn't help that the stained walls created random splotches of grime that looked like shadowy figures. As he walked down the hall, his nerves slowly grew as he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. A small shiver ran down his spine, and his hand drifted to his jacket pocket to palm a small folding knife. "I know I'm alone here, but this place is fucking creepy." At the end of the hall, he ducked into the garage and let out an audible sigh of relief. The hole in the roof that previously unnerved him was now a source of reassurance, as natural light streamed in to illuminate the garage. 2 more mannequins were here, one standing on top of a box in the corner, and another peeking at him from behind a taller crate. He ignored them for now, heading into the back corner where he found the entrance to the security room. He inputted the same code for all the other doors, but the door gave a negative chime and remained stubbornly closed. He paused and gave it a moment's consideration, then put in the next likely code, 1, 2, 3, and 4. With a familiar electronic sound and a smirk, the light turned green. There was yet another mannequin in here that he quickly shoved into the corner. He found 2 light switches beneath the window, and soon the entranceway and hallway were relatively well lit. It was finally time to check out his workplace, where he would be spending a significant portion of his time in this facility. He made sure to lock the garage door behind him and stepped into the signal room, the pneumatic doors hissing open as he pulled the handle. It was a mess in here too, but not nearly as bad as it could have been. His gaze shifted around the room, taking notice of the central station, the lockers, the map of the satellite array, the decontamination shower, and the door leading into the server room. However, his gaze lingered on the radar terminal off to the left, near the computers. Its presence was worrying, to say the least. Jay forced out a nervous chuckle as he walked up to the terminal. Why does this place need a radar? He reached out and flicked it on, the screen lighting up to display concentric circles. Soon, a white line began to rotate around the screen. When it hit the bottom, Jay froze. 2 contacts appeared immediately, right next to each other. A second later, a third appeared off to the left. His breath caught in his throat as his pulse skyrocketed, his hand shooting back down to his jacket. He stared at the screen for a long time, watching as the radar pinged those same 3 contacts. They never moved. He was sure one of them was him, but that meant there were 2 others within 20 meters. Yet, pass after pass, they never moved. His breathing slowed, and his pulse steadied a little more each time the contacts were pinged in the same place. His mind ran wild. Was there someone else here? He was told he would be alone in the entire array. Was there something else here? A wild animal? A predator? Only after 10 minutes of motionless pinging did he allow himself to step away from the radar and approach the computer in the center of the room. Disregarding the 4 different monitors for now, he focused on the antique desktop in the center. He took a seat in the aged swivel chair and winced as it groaned in protest, undoubtedly going unused for quite some time. He booted up the computer and watched as a custom operating system called Meadow launched. Immediately, several yellow tabs became apparent at the top of the screen. He idly clicked through the upgrades, modules, database, store, cameras, photos, and components. It all seemed rather self-explanatory, though he questioned the necessity of tabs like upgrades and modules. Then he clicked on the email tab that had been colored blue since the computer booted up. 3 emails were waiting for him. The first was an automated system message going over how to use the 4 systems surrounding him. He skimmed over it quickly, then clicked on the next one. It was a rather lengthy email from someone named Professor Leah. J. Fontentot, welcome to the Alpen Signal Observatorium. My name is Leah, your primary supervisor here. Alongside this email, you should have received an automated one that walks you through the process of finding, downloading, and refining signals. There should also be another from Dr. Bao, the head scientist on our team. Dr. Bao. Bao will explain your responsibilities in more depth, but I'd like to cover some other topics. Firstly, the radar terminal in the room with you. If you've turned it on, I imagine you've seen the 3 contacts. Don't worry. One of the 2 near the center of the field is you. The other is a solar-powered security camera above the front door. You can move it wherever you want, though I doubt you'll ever need it. The 3rd contact is the ATV in the garage. Jay let out a soft sigh of relief, feeling a bit of his worry fade away from him. The idea of 2 wild animals large enough to trigger the radar hiding out in his new home had been very concerning. With that aside, he continued reading. The radar itself is state-of-the-art with built-in filters. It will only display animals not native to the region or motion beyond a specific threshold. The original model was flawed and would ping the satellite array while they rotated, but the current model has those included in the filter. Motion beyond a threshold? That was a strange way to describe it, almost as if they were expecting motion from non-living things. Then, after a moment, it felt slightly more reasonable. He had been told that all of his incoming and outgoing shipments would be delivered by drone, not truck. He supposed it was helpful to know when it arrived. Secondly, he'd like to cover the upgrades and modules tabs. Much of the equipment's capabilities are restricted behind these improvements, which require points to unlock. You can earn these points by sending in signals, reporting requested hash codes, and completing daily tasks that Dr. Bao assigns you. Yes, I agree, it's dumb and reduces your effectiveness. However, the isolation at Alpha Root Base can wreak havoc on your mind and sanity, and Dr. Runley's point. Bao concluded that goals to work towards can be beneficial, even if they are artificial. As backwards as it seems, he's been right so far. Lastly, well cover the store. Each day, your pay will be deposited into a company account for you to use. Additionally, you'll receive a weekly bonus based on how you perform. Everything you order will be delivered to the exterior loading bay via drone. And that was it. Rather abruptly, the email cut off. He definitely agreed that the upgrade system was counterproductive and just another thing he would have to manage here, but there wasn't anything he could do about that. Besides, the job paid very well. Downsides were to be expected, and if the worst one was being micromanaged by a boss with a video game obsession, then that was fine. Finally, Jay clicked on the final email, the one that was from Dr. Bao himself. Hello, I am Dr. Bao, the head scientist here at ASO. I will be responsible for assigning you daily tasks. Each day, I will request some drives of a specific level, ranging from level 0 to level 3. Don't worry, I won't request drives you aren't able to obtain based on your upgrades. Professor Leah's email should explain that part. I will also request hash codes from specific satellites. These are very important and are used to verify the satellite's integrity. So if you ever have to choose between hash codes and signals, retrieve the codes. Each day, you can place your drives and hash codes into a drive box and send them back to us with a drone. I will compensate you for any extra drives you may send, but not extra hash codes. Outside of your daily tasks, you'll also need to upkeep the facility. The room connected to the signal room is a server room, primarily dedicated to running calculations. Each satellite also has a server. They can experience malfunctions due to age and lack of upkeep or replacement over the years. For the most part, a simple reboot will fix the issue. However, the servers inside the satellites may have loose connections that come undone as the dish rotates. Maybe look into replacing some of the cables when you have the time and money. Lastly, the base's power. The entire facility is powered by 4 large, modernized windmills, but the infrastructure is otherwise outdated. The entire array is powered by 3 transformers positioned in a rough triangle. The transformers will often need to be manually reset, requiring you to drive out there and reset them by pressing the big red button on them. If one goes down entirely, the process is the same, but you'll need to press it twice. I recommend not letting one of the transformers run out. And again, that was it. Jay leaned back in his chair with another groan of protest, thinking over the 2 lengthy emails he had read. The information about the radar was nice. It helped ease his mind, though he was still confused and a little worried. If the filters removed all the native animals from showing, why was it even here? To raise no way they installed an entire radome just to track the drones. Another thing was that there was no function to reply to the emails. If he needed to contact anyone at ASO, the only way to do so would be to write notes and send them back with the drones. Well, he had been told he'd be cut off from the outside world except for the drones. Despite that, he couldn't help but feel that it was a stupid decision. If there was ever an emergency, it would take him a while to get any kind of help on the way. Beep. Jay jerked, startled, as a soft beep echoed through the room. For a worrying moment, he thought it was the radar detecting something. But no, it was just another email. He didn't even realize how close he leaned into the screen when he noticed that there was no name or title, just a message. Basement. 3rd locker. Do I have to? Jay thought uneasily. This place was creepy enough, and he certainly didn't want to go into the basement, especially at the behest of an unnamed benefactor sending him a secret email. However, he still needed to go down there anyway. He had only glanced around the building the night before, but he hadn't found the breaker panel yet. With that in mind, he rose to his feet and quickly made his way out of the processing center and to the stairwell. A bit of natural light filtered in from the barred window in the back, but he flicked on the light anyway and took a moment to collect himself. Then, he made his way downstairs. The air quickly began to reek of decay, and the temperature grew uncomfortably warm, way too warm for the Alpine mountains. Jay unzipped his jacket and rolled up the sleeves as he reached the floor, and yet more trash and grimy walls greeted him. He walked down the hallway and took the bend left, only to flinch and shout as a wooden mannequin was less than a foot away from him. In frustration, he shoved the statue over as his heart pounded wildly in his chest. Twice the fucker scared me with the mannequins. Whoever worked here before him was going to get a stern scolding or more. On the plus side, he found the breaker panel. 4 of the switches could be toggled from the processing computer, but he still needed to find the panel itself. If anything ever tripped the utilities breaker, he would have to come down here and manually turn it back on anyway. He also found a light switch right where the wooden figure had been standing, and the basement felt slightly less oppressive once the light was on. That relief was quickly ruined as soon as he noticed the meat locker with 10 carcasses hanging inside, the chair in front of it as if someone had tried to block the door, and the 2 extra mannequins. On another plus side, there was an incinerator in the corner that would serve as a great spot to get rid of the wooden people. An unsteady sigh escaped Jay as he quickly opened the 3rd of 4 lockers, then had to quickly step back as a large pile of rounded stones rolled out and across the floor. He stared down at the extra mess and was on the verge of cursing out the previous employee, but stopped. He caught sight of the corner of a somewhat large black case at the bottom of the locker. Shoving the rocks aside and grabbing the case, he hesitantly flicked the light switch off and hurried back upstairs to the signal room. As much as he had wanted to leave the lights on, he also really didn't want to end up driving out to a transformer in the middle of the night. Once back in the signal room, he gently set the black case down on the corner of the desk. It wasn't locked, just latched, so he popped it open easily. His eyes widened as he beheld the holster sitting inside the case. The aged leather wrapped around a worn yet clean revolver. Beneath it, a black and yellow box containing 50 bullets rested. It did not escape his attention that about 1/3 of the box was gone. Jay picked it up slowly, examining it. The holster itself was one meant to be worn on the chest, and the gun would rest right around his lower left side. The little S and W on the bottom told him it was a Smith & Wesson revolver, but he didn't know anything beyond that. He did know enough to know he was glad it was a revolver, not a pistol, because he had zero idea how to take apart a semi-automatic and clean it. It was unloaded too, so he felt a little more comfortable fiddling with it. When he tried to cock the hammer back with his thumb, it refused to cooperate. However, when he slowly pulled the trigger, he saw it start to cock back. Instead of dry firing it, he slowly released the trigger. Double action then. After a moment, he loaded 6 rounds into the cylinder and set it back down on the corner of the table. It would be within arm's reach of him while he was sitting here, but not pointed at him or the door either. Jay glanced back at the computer, a frown creasing his face. Why had someone left a gun here and explicitly told him where it was without revealing their identity? All right, enough procrastinating. I need to do some cleaning, Jay said with a tired sigh. There was so much that needed to be done to get this place even remotely livable, but for now, he'd settle for his bedroom-kitchen combo and the signal room. At least the 2 places he'd spend most of his time in would be clean. The day passed uneventfully. Jay quickly cleaned up the bedroom and threw all the trash into one of the dumpsters out back. He organized the beds, cleaned out the bathroom, mopped the floors, and then got distracted by throwing all of the mannequins into the upstairs storeroom. He made sure to lock the door after he noticed the lift that led to the garage. After that, he carefully examined the altered poster. Something about the triangular ship felt intentional to him. Why had they scribbled out the regular UFO and drawn an arrowhead? With the question in mind, he cleaned the poster off the best he could and hung it back up on the now clean walls. A quick break for lunch, and then it was time to tackle the signal room. He quickly swept all the paper and plastic into a garbage bin he had laid on its side. The pool of water in the decontamination shower became useful as his mop water turned black countless times while cleaning off the floor and walls, and only got worse when he cleaned out the server room. Finally, as the sky was turning orange with the setting sun, he approached the last task. Jay knew he would be spending a lot of time in this room, and being able to gaze out the glass and into the rather pretty sight outside would be nice. He set the bucket down next to the desk and got to work. The mop left streaks against the glass, and he knew he would have to go back over it with a sponge, but with every pass, the windows became cleaner and clearer. He hummed idly as he worked, allowing his mind to wander. He would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous and worried being out here. This job was unlike anything he had ever had before. He was a laborer back home, working whatever manual jobs were available. It paid well enough to keep the lights on and food on his table, but he knew the toll that kind of work took on the body. Ping, tick, tick, tick. Jay was young now, only in his mid-20s, but in 2 decades? 3? 4? Eventually, things like construction, bricklaying, and roofing would all take a toll on him. Just like his father had, he would end up in near constant pain and unable to enjoy his later years. So when he saw an advertisement for a company called Alpine Signal Observatorium that offered good pay, on-the-job training, and required no technical knowledge, he jumped at it. The pay, while not ridiculous, was more than generous for the duties that had been listed. Ping, tick, tick, tick. It wasn't like it was too good to be true either. The listing mentioned extreme isolation, being almost entirely disconnected from the outside world for confidentiality, tedious and routine tasks, and an unused facility that needed desperate cleaning. The power grid fluctuated because it was based on half-century-old technology and never modernized. The winters were cold, and the forest at night seemed terrifying. It was a mixed bag, but Jay was willing to give it a chance. All he had to do was sign a non-disclosure agreement and a 1-month contract to be renewed monthly. Ping, tick, tick, tick. This job wasn't his ideal job, but it wasn't that bad either. Sure, he liked his solitude and peace, but complete isolation wasn't something people were meant to experience. And while he had grown up around the woods, it was different when he was completely alone, 100 miles from civilization in a creepy abandoned research station. Ping, tick, 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 tick. Jay knew the tedium would get annoying though. The automated email he had gotten mentioned, a Carrefour unit that could repair both in-base and satellite servers for him. It was definitely going to be one of the first things he spent some points on, though it took a hefty 500. Though that might change once I actually start searching for signals. We'll see. Ping. Tick, 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 tick. Jay froze as a chill seeped down his spine, raw terror ripping through his form. He wasn't sure how long the radar had been picking up an extra signal. In fact, He had only even noticed because of something else. A large rock clacked across the parking lot, originating from the thick underbrush just to his right, not even 30 feet away. The brush shifted and rustled erratically, completely at odds with the chill wind rolling down into the valley. The radar chimed again. Blood roared in his ears and his pulse skyrocketed. Ping. Tick, 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 tick. The thick bushes rustled again, and despite not being able to see anything within them, he acted. He dropped the mop to the floor and stumbled around the edge of the desk, banging his elbow and kicking over the half-filled bucket of water. Clumsy hands threw the chest holster over his shoulder, and he fumbled as he grabbed a handful of spare bullets. Metallic tinks rang out as some clattered against the floor, but the rest were shoved into a jacket pocket. He turned toward the door, hesitating. Did he wait and see, or did he go out there? If he met whatever it was outside, he'd be exposed, vulnerable. But if he waited and it got inside, he'd have nowhere to run. Ping, tick, 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 gone. As quickly as the contact had arrived, they were gone. What should have calmed him instead made him more terrified. There was no way they had just fled the radar extended for at least 100 meters around the base. They had just disappeared right off the radar. After a moment, Jay understood. This wasn't an accident. It was a warning. He wasn't alone out here, and they wanted him to know. He couldn't track them unless they allowed it, and they wanted him to know that too. And they were scarily quiet. There had been no sound as they arrived or left. He only heard what they wanted him to. There was no doubt about it. He was terrified. Shaky hands grabbed a strip of paper and a pen. It would be a waste of a drive box, but oh well. Professor Leah. Her stride ate up the distance from the humans' facility to her makeshift home. Meter after meter passed beneath her quick, steady gait at a pace much faster than any human could run. Her armored form was nigh invisible in the dying light, sensors collecting and reprojecting light in such a way that she only appeared as an indistinct blur. Soon enough, she began to make out the telltale signs she and her friend had placed to locate their home in this dense forest. A collection of mushrooms here and a broken branch there, all were signs that would be easy to overlook. At the proper point, she stopped and looked straight up. High above her, and nestled in the dense canopy of several larger trees, there was an irregularly shaped wooden platform. Dense, still-living branches were pulled and pinned in place to create a vibrant green camouflage, just in case a human ever looked up. With a quick exertion of her digitigrade legs, she leapt nearly 8 feet into the air and caught a larger branch. With slightly unsteady movements, she pulled herself up and ran across the branch. Her tail tried to flick around instinctively to help her balance, but her suit prevented that. She made it to the platform without falling anyway, then brushed aside the leaf curtain that served as a door and disengaged her active cloaking at the same time. With a dispersion of hexagonal tiles, her suit came into view. Sleek, black, and completely covering her from head to toe, it was a marvel of aerial engineering. The helmet was large and jutted out enough to encompass her short muzzle. A pair of large, ear-like antennas protruded up and behind her head, and a large visor allowed her to see through the built-in cameras. Intricately connected segments made up the majority of the body and limbs, tightly joined to create a hermetic seal. Her digitigrade legs were supported by a spring-assisted heel that made jumping and running easier. Lastly, large claws stuck out of both her feet and hands to assist in climbing, or to be used as weapons in a pinch. As she stepped into the room, her eyes shifted around the place. It wasn't quite a home, but it was slightly more than just a shelter. The entire structure was relatively spacious and consisted of 3 rooms spread out over just as many trees. The floor was made of reformed wooden planks constructed by their fabricator, while the walls were framed in more of those same planks with thick leaf canopies filling the rest. The roof was a series of green-dyed tarps supported by interlocking branches, enough to keep the rain out. The first room, the entrance, was dedicated to storage. There were salvaged metal crates next to haphazardly constructed wooden shelves. Tools, personal effects, and other miscellaneous equipment were stored on the shelving. The crates were dedicated to food preservation, mostly, or otherwise sensitive equipment that they could not risk losing. The room to the left of the entrance was mostly unused. Nothing but a simple signal jammer placed inside and emitting a constant, barely audible hum. The room to the right was the bedroom where 2 large, plush cushions were situated beside each other. One of them, hers, was a deep red. The other was a bright blue, and there was a solar-powered space heater sitting between them. Her attention was drawn to the individual lying sprawled out on the blue cushion, her matching hair fanned out around her head as she reclined comfortably. "Help me out of this, Ezra," Argamia asked with a groan, earning an understanding smile and a soft noise of agreement from her friend. The armored individual lightly tapped the control panel on her wrist, causing the suit to let out a light hiss as the hermetic seal came free. An instant later, the shelter was filled with hisses, clicks, and dull thunks as the suit seemingly bulked up. Its smooth, streamlined appearance changed to something far more blocky as the previously interlocked segments pulled apart, allowing easier removal. A soft push of her tail caused one such piece to dislodge and fall to the floor. Her long, white tail snaked out of the newly formed slot and swished through the air, the red fur on the tip ruffled from the extended period of being jammed into her back. With a happy little sigh, she collapsed on her plush red bed and pulled her helmet off. Brilliant red hair flowed down her shoulders and upper back, spilling out across the cushion as she lay back and stretched out. Idly, she brought her long tail up and began to smooth out the messy fur. She heard cloth shifting as Ezraniki shifted, stretching. A little yawn filled the air before her muzzle clacked shut. Then she deftly rolled over and hopped to her paw pads, joining Argamia. The cushion beneath her depressed, more under the weight of an extra person, as the pair began to slowly remove the armor around Argamia. Piece by piece, the interlocking segments of the Indus Recon suit were removed from her form and neatly piled up. When it was done, Argamia was left in a black undersuit that contoured to her body, leaving only her face, hands, feet, and tail uncovered. While comfortable, it provided next to no insulation, so she quickly threw on a larger coat and turned on the space heater. Soft vibrations rumbled through her chest as the heater dispelled the growing cold, the soft purr rising in volume as she felt Ezraniki's fingers begin to run through her tangled red hair. "Is it done, Argy?" Ezraniki questioned softly. There was a noticeable tone of dissatisfaction in her voice, causing Argamia's ears to flick softly before they folded back completely. "It's done. He knows there's something in this forest with him, just no idea what." There was a hint of discomfort in her voice. For a long moment, Ezraniki was silent. Her six-fingered hands continued to slowly comb through her hair, dislodging the tangles caused by the tight helmet. The only sounds in the hidden platform were the soft hum of the heater, the idle clicking of the jammer in the other room, and the quiet breathing of the two inhabitants. After a moment, her voice continued slowly. "Was it really necessary? I can't say that I like scaring the life out of the human who already has to deal with this damned forest. We couldn't have talked to him." Argamia's mind drifted back to that moment, the sudden freeze of his movements, the tension in his muscles, the way she could see his breath catch even through the dirty glass, the slowly widening eyes, the raw fear as he fumbled for his weapon. It was. "We don't know how long we're stuck here, Ezra. What will we do if he finds us and tells all of humanity? Where would we hide? I gave him a warning. That's it. I didn't hurt him. How did he take it? How badly did you scare him?" Ezra asked softly, her bright blue eyes raising to meet Argamia's emerald green. She knew what the red-headed Ariral meant by giving him a warning. The way Argy's ears splayed back, her tail curled close, and her eyes shifted away told her everything. He was terrified for his life, wasn't he? "Until we can get at least one of the arrows working, he's a danger to us," Argamia said with a firm tone, but couldn't meet her friend's eyes. She wasn't entirely sure she believed it herself. "I'm not going to hurt him. I promise. But we can't risk him finding you. We only have my Indus suit, and we can't escape with our arrows. If he finds out who or even what we are, there's no guarantee we'll be here when the Senate finds us." Ezraniki dropped the topic, but Argamia knew she wasn't satisfied. Deep down, a part of her wasn't either. She knew the truth. The human wasn't a direct threat to either of them. He'd never find Ezra, and his weapons wouldn't be able to hurt her. Was it really justified to terrify him on the chance that something goes wrong? Argamia wanted to say yes, but she wasn't so sure. Instead, she just softly hugged her friend. She nearly sagged in relief when Ezra returned the embrace.